All right. We're going to talk about methods today. And as you'll see, I have a lot of favorite movies that involve space or Disney. We're going to watch a video clip. It somewhat relates to methods. There's a special bonus question. Green ticket, 10 points, extra credit. So you want to create a bonus question email to me. This is not a sports movie. This is a space.
No. It says someone in it is
from a sports movie.
from a sports movie.
I don't watch sports movies.
Okay. Well, then you're not going to get it right. Okay. The first correct answer gets the green ticket. You're going to watch this video clip. It's a longer clip, and I'm going to show about 2 minutes of it. One of the actors in this clip is a prominent person in a sports-related movie. If you can name the movie, you get the bonus ticket. All right, we'll turn off the lights so you can see things clearly. Listen for the voice. The voice is the most distinctive part from this clip. But you might recognize his face too. Oh. Just a minute. I've lost control.
Listen up. Give me a go, no go for launch.
Okay, this is a little earlier than I normally start, but you'll get the idea.
Apollo 13 flight controllers, listen up. Give me a go, no go for launch. Booster.
Go.
Retro.
Go.
Vital.
We're go flight.
Guidance.
Guidance go.
Surgeon.
Go flight.
Ecom.
We're go flight.
GNC.
We're go.
Telmuse.
Go.
Control.
Go flight.
Procedures.
Go.
Inco.
Go.
FAO.
We are go.
Network.
Go.
Recovery.
Go.
Capcom.
We're go flight.
Launch control, this is Houston. We are go for launch.
Roger that, Houston. Pad leader, what's your status?
We are go for launch. T-minus 60 seconds and counting. Countdown to power hill. Just a little bit right. First party line with Skyman. 6-0, stand by.
Fuel pumps. This is it. A few bumps that we're hauling the mail.
We are go for launch. T-minus
15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Ignition sequence start. 1. Ignition.
flash. You got it.
I didn't get any emails.
Yeah, one of Footloose, the first sports movies, that's all I want to from.
Footloose and Forrest Gump. Okay. What was going on at the very beginning of the clip? Dude's talking into the microphone. What are they doing?
They're making sure everything is go for launch.
They're doing a roll call, and they're making sure everything's good to go. Do you want one more chance? One more chance for the bonus ticket?
I have no clue. Like I said,
There's Tom Hanks and Kevin Bacon,
yeah.
but I don't know any sports movies.
Toy Story?
So
Does that count?
That's not a sports movie. So what's all the codes that he's calling out? Network, Capcom, Fido. What are all those? Huh? They're codes for what? The different systems or departments that cover the launch and the health and well-being of the whole launch system, set of systems. Okay, I'm going to give you one more chance. Your clue is listen to the guy that reports as Fido. He calls out Fido. And he says, we're good to go. That's the guy. You can pay attention now. Maybe you'll get this.
Apollo 13 flight controllers, listen up. Give me a go, no go for launch. Booster.
Go.
Retro.
Go.
Vital.
We go flight.
Guidance.
Guidance, go.
Surge.
Why can I not think of his name right now?
I'm looking for the name of the movie, but if you know his name,
oh yes, it's the only sports movie I've watched in forever.
I have a feeling more of you have seen this sports movie than you realize. It's not Tom Cruise. Does anybody have a guess?
I sent it again.
It's so...
I don't think I got it right,
Nope.
but I sent it again.
I got it in the guess. Okay. So let's find the picture of the guy. It goes by so quick.
Oh,
You know?
maybe.
You go, no go for launch. Booster.
Go.
Retro.
Go.
Vital.
We go flight.
It's that guy. You can barely see him. Sorry. Okay. No one knows.
Was it right?
I am shocked. Is that a movie?
Because I forgot what it was called.
What's the movie?
Blindside.
Blindside.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
It's the coach from The Blind Side.
I play video games, write code.
Okay, enough torture. All right, we'll move on. So, in Apollo 13, he's going through and he's doing this roll call. And he's asking every one of these control systems, go, no go for flight. He's not sitting there going, all right, booster guys, tell me how the boosters are doing and how's the ignition system going and how's everything feeling and are all your pressures up to date and everything like that. He's not asking that. He is indirectly, but he's asking the big overarching question, go, no go. He's actually asking a Boolean question. A true-false question. Should we go? If any one of these says no, the launch is put on hold until they figure out what's going on, or they scrub the launch and do it another day. So every one of these, he's asking this big macro question, are we good to go? And he's saying, Booster, are we good to go? Capcom, are we good to go? Ecom, are we good to go? Fido, are we good to go? And so on and so forth down the list. He's asking a Boolean question because A, they don't have a whole lot of time at this point. They're seconds away from a launch. B, they have hundreds of people participating, and they don't need everybody starting to go into some big, huge conference mode. They just need a very crisp answer from every single one of these. True or false? Go, no go. Now take that into account when we go on to talking about standard interfaces. We deal with standard interfaces all the time. Here's one. It's called a mouse. Years ago, no one knew what this thing was. But every one of you, Gabe, how you doing? Every one of you knows what to do when you sit down. You expect it has at least one button, maybe two, sometimes 18 buttons. But you understand what a mouse does, and you understand that you move it around the screen and the pointer follows your movement. Everybody understands when you walk into a room, there's this little switch thing on the wall. They differ slightly sometimes, but they're all pretty standard. There's the standard kind of paddle switch that we have here, but then some of you have like the little push buttons, or there's a couple other variations. But they're usually put in a standard place. Why? Because when you come into the room, it's with arm's reach of walking into the dark room. You also know what to do. You know what to do with this little white thing up here, the outlet on the wall. You know what to expect. You don't go there and plug your pencil in there, think it's going to be a pencil sharpener, though some little kids might do that. It's not something to sharpen your knives. You don't put a knife in there. You know what to expect when you plug into there. And all the manufacturers know exactly how big each of those slots are. And they know exactly how far they're all spaced from each other. Because they want to create a product that you'll buy that you can plug in there. And so they're all standard. It's a standard interface. Other standards that you deal with. Now, other countries have different standards for how you plug things into the wall. They do that for different reasons, and they even have switches for each individual outlet in some places. Okay? Many other countries have double the voltage that we do. We're like a 120, these are at 240. Okay? And so some things, believe it or not, if you plug in the wrong thing into a 220 outlet or 240 outlet, it'll blow up.
Oh, that's exciting.
Okay? And if you look at your hair dryer, your curling iron, whatever you plug into the wall, some of them say 120 or 220, 120, 240. Some of them say 120 only. You plug me in anything else, I'm gone. How many know what that is?
Oh, that's an airplane, right?
It's for sound.
Oh no! It's a stereo jack. It's the big style stereo jack. The big headphones and the big jacks and the big port. It's kind of about the size for electric guitar. If you play electric guitar, it's that same size port. This is a standard interface. The smaller mini one that you plug into your phone, if your phone still has a headphone jack anymore, follows the same standard interface. The point is that the manufacturer of the earbuds are expecting all of the mini ports to all function the exact same way. Unless you're an iPhone. So, all right. Now we're on to Star Wars. Everybody knows what Order 66 is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Watch this for a minute. This is where everything goes horribly wrong. Sorry. Spoiler alert.
Commander, contact your troops. Tell them to move to the higher levels.
Very good, sir. Oh, by the way, I think you'll be needing this.
Thank you, Cody. Now let's get a move on. We've got a battle to win here.
Yes, sir.
Commander Cody, the time has come. execute Order 66.
Yes, my lord. Blast him!
We don't need to see any more of that carnage. What was that Order 66?
It was kill all.
Okay, who does not? Oh, I'm not going to ask for confessions. Who does not know what? Okay, what's Order 66?
Kill all the Jedi.
It's kill all the Jedi. The Emperor Palpatine, evil, most dark villain, grandfather of. Okay, I won't spoil it. He had already pre-programmed into all these clones, didn't he? All he had to do was say, execute Order 66. That really meant a whole list of instructions. But all he had to say was one code word, Order 66, and they knew exactly what to do, right? That was kind of an interface or a prearranged code word with everybody. So you remember your dice game? I should have my dice game up, shouldn't I? Let's see, do I have my dice game up here? Dice, 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 dice. No. Resume. I didn't want to stop. 3 doors. Okay. You remember your dice game? How many places did you have to put in the code that says compute the round score, and if all 4 dice are the same, multiply it by 5? How many places did you have to put that?
At least one. Probably more.
You remember?
It was, you had to put it with a 1 under each dice.
One under each dice, plus at the beginning of the game and at the new round.
Yeah.
That was kind of a pain, huh? Some of you lost points for that because you didn't quite get it in all the right places.
That's why you test as you're going.
What? Crazy talk.
Just like start up the program, make sure it works.
Yeah, why did you do that?
Okay. Let's see. Pull this out here. No. I should have been extract to the desktop. Yes. Dice roller. All right. We'll get this warming up. And how many times did you have code scattered throughout your code to roll at least one of the dice? Same thing, 6 times plus. Well, let's see. You did 4 times when you started, 4 times when you started a new round. You rolled 4 dice, and then in each of the 4, so that was 12.
If I had a button that rolled all the dice simultaneously as well,
There you go.
so that's even more.
And so it got to be really cumbersome when you were trying to keep track of all those different places. You put the exact same piece of code. You copied that code everywhere. Now, let's see what we've got. All right. Oh, this isn't a good example. I'm sorry I don't have a good example. But if I had my dice game up, good thing I'm recording this, huh? Dice roller. Tic-tac-toe. All right, we're going to get the dice game. This is the functioning dice game assignment. If we came through and we said, okay, hey, now what we want to do is we want to say that every time one of the dice is even, we want it to be blue, and if it's odd, we want it to be red. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go through all of my code, and I'm going to copy paste that code all throughout to change the color of the dice. So right here, where I'm assigning the dice to those, I would have to check each one, and I would have to say, hey, well, if die 1 is even, did you know that's a shortcut you can say to see if it's evenly divisible by 0, it's even, right? If it's divisible by 2 and there's no remainder, that means it's an even number. So if it's even, then I want to say, okay, well, button die 1 dot the background. We're going to change the background color to be colors dot blue. Otherwise, if it's not even, it's odd. Sorry, not color, brushes. And I copy this line, copy that line to here. And we're going to say, well, if it's odd, we're going to make it red. You get the idea, right? And so if I run this, I only did this for button 1 only when the game starts. It's coming. I have a new machine coming. Help me make it much more fast. You see what I did here? It's just a simple little piece of code. But now,
But it only does that one.
it does it only for button on die 1. You see it happened to work this time because it happened to be even. It would have been red had it been odd. And it only does it for when I start the game. So if I restart the game, let's see if we can get a red something to show up. It's kind of a goofy example to have it be red or blue. Another even number. Oh. This is great. I swear the red code works. Hey, okay. It worked. You get the idea. If I want to start customizing things, so how many times would I need to copy? This is just a few lines of code. How many times would I need to copy that code around? 6. Well, I need to do it 4 times for starting the game, 4 times for restarting the game, plus 1 for each of the other 4, so that now that's 12 places. And then if I change my mind and say, well, instead of even odd, I want, if it's the number 1, I want to display an image, a specific image that's a picture of a die with just the one pip, one dot on it. And if it's the number 2, I have a different image for that. And if it's the number 3, I have a different image for that. You see how painful it becomes that you're copying code all over the place. Starting from today, going forward for your assignments, you're no longer going to copy code all over the place. You're going to use methods. The methods allow you to compartmentalize code, common code, in one place. Kind of like Executive Order 66 or whatever, you have it all compartmentalized or grouped together in one place. And in different places in your code, you can say, oh, I know what we're supposed to do here. Go do that little group of code to come back and go on and do normal things. Over here, call this. So when you want to make a change, you only have to change it in one place, not 12 different places. And it just gets worse as your programs get bigger and bigger. Does that kind of make sense? So this was one example if you wanted to just do different things. My phone is exploding. There. Not going to explode anymore. So you're going to start following along real closely. Oh, Gabe, did I give you one of these? I didn't give you one of these. It's a worksheet. It's only one page. All right. Methods are where we want to do something more than once, and we want to group it into a single place. So if you want some kind of piece of code that says, compute the round score and multiply by 5 if needed, you could compartmentalize that into a method. A simple method looks something like this. This word private is optional. We're not going to go too much into why you'd make something private or public. That's a more advanced class that we're not going to cover in this class. So the simple method declaration is you use an identifier right here. You do private void, you give it a name, it's like a variable name, and then you have two parens, and then you have the curly braces that identify a group of statements. Okay? Sometimes methods are called functions, subroutines, or subprograms. They're called a lot of different things. Those cover pretty much 99% of what they're called. But it allows you to put in a group of statements and kind of use it as a macro, if you will, for calling from different places inside your code. So when you want to call it, you would just give it the name, do parens and a semicolon, meaning somewhere else in your code where you wanted to call this method, you just identified it by a name, and now you just simply refer to it, and you said, Fred, go do order 66. Whatever it is. In your code, you don't need to worry about all the things that comprise what order 66 is. Here you just simply say, go do order 66. Go do it for me, type of thing. Now this identifier is important. Guess what? It needs to be unique. So you can't have a whole bunch of methods all called order 66. You can have one method called order 66. And when you name your methods, it's the same way as naming your variables. A through Z, 0 through 9, and underscores. And it can't start with a number. So an identifier has to be A through Z, 0 through 9, and underscores only. No other punctuation, no other letters, symbols, numbers, and things. So let me give you an example. Here's a method called addBonus. addBonus does these 3 lines of code. So whenever any piece of code calls to addBonus, it's going to run these 3 lines of code and then go back to whoever called me and continue on the line after that. So here I'm rolling a dice. I'm saying, hey, if all dice are the same, die 1 is equal to 2 and 2 is equal to 3. If that's true, I'm going to call addBonus. It's essentially the same as if I copied these lines of code in here. But I don't want to copy the lines of code all over the place because I want to be able to have some sanity in my code, and I don't want all this code bloated all over the place. I want it nice and succinct and to the point. And so whenever I say, oh, go addBonus, I'm going to add 25 to the score. I'm going to display the new score. And then I'm going to display in some message text field, bonus. And then I'm going to come back and continue executing after that. That's a simple example. You've essentially put together a group of statements because of the braces. You've given it a name, and now anywhere that wants to call it can call it by name. If you're looking at your worksheet, number 1 would be really simple to do something like this. You've got to give it a name, but we're going to talk about how we name the things in just a second. Here's one, end game, that says whenever somebody calls end game is going to, this line is taking some button, likely it's called button guess, and it's saying is enabled false. That means disable the button. And it's displaying some text that says game over. Somewhere it's displaying the text game over. Game over. It's the end game. And so let's say this is not how we would do it in our dice game, but let's say we ran out of rolls. We could say, oh, rolls is equal to 0. There's no more rolls left. We're going to do the end game. Order 66. Kill all the Jedi. I mean, disable the button, display game over. Now, there's a syntax for naming methods and a convention. The syntax for naming them, I've just talked about. A through Z, 0 through 9, underscores can't start with a number. Case matters just like it does with variables. So uppercase Fred and lowercase Fred are two different things. The convention we use, and I talked about this in our test review accidentally, is Pascal case. First off, you should name your method something meaningful. If you just name it Operation 66, okay, what does that mean? If somebody's looking through your code, they might not know what Operation 66 or Order 66 means. But if you name it something like Kill All Jedi, oh, that makes more sense now. Oh, okay, I understand. Kill all Jedi. So whenever we call this, we're going to kill all the Jedi in the game. Make it something meaningful. Oftentimes people will begin it with a verb. You don't have to. But the thing you do have to do so you don't lose points is it needs to be Pascal case. Pascal case is easier than camel case because Pascal cases capitalize the first letter of each word. So if you saw how back here I said end game, capital E, capital G, or add bonus, capital A, capital B. So I was already preconditioning you to Pascal case. So Pascal case, capitalize the first letter of each word. Now, the more complex method declaration, this gets a little more complex. You can ignore private. Methods are like little mini programs. Sometimes they're called subprograms or subroutines. They have an input. This is the processing part, the statements that are in the group in the braces, the group of statements that are in here. There's 0 or more statements in here. You can have nothing in here, but then it kind of makes it worthless. So why did you do that? But you can have nothing in here. But this is the processing part. The input part is this parameter list. And the output part is the return type. So you give it a name. You can identify the input. The previous example I gave you was just 2 parentheses next to each other with nothing in there. It basically was saying, I take no input if there's nothing in the parentheses. And if it's void right here, the previous examples I showed you had the word void here. Void means I have no output. I am not going to give you any information back. So coming back to what we were looking at here, we said endgame is a method. It has no input and it has no output. But it's processing. It needs to do something. Otherwise, why bother? The processing part of this mini program is what's inside here. In this case, it was disabling the button and displaying game over. So let's go to a more complicated example. Here is a method called calculate area. Its input are 2 integers. Notice how it's just a comma delimited list of variables. As though it's a variable declaration, and it acts like a variable declaration. But the only thing that you can have here is variable declarations. If you have more than one, you have to have a comma in between them. So in this case, it's saying, I want 2 integers as input. I'm going to do some processing on it, and I'm going to return, where it says private int, I'm going to return an integer. Return integer. So the type of this expression must match the type that you declare here. If it's a void, you don't need the return statement. You can just do return with nothing on it, and that works just fine for a void method. But if there's any type here, any return type here, that means you have to have a return, whatever that type is, somewhere in your code.
Or it'll mess up.
Or it won't compile. It's beyond mess up. It won't compile. It will be a syntax error. What? Okay, and so if I want to call this little mini program, which is called a method, I say calculate area, and I give it 2 integers. In this case, I'm giving it 5 and 7. And then it's going to return a value. So 5 is an expression, it's an integer. 7 is an expression, it's an integer. Calculate area is an expression as well, and it's an integer. So in this case, 5 and 7 are going to come in for length and width. So length will have the value 5, width will have the value 7. And so now inside here, 5 times 7, quick Ethan? 35. Area in here is going to be 35. Notice there's a declaration of area here, which is different than this declaration of area down here. So this area is going to have 35, and it's going to say, I'm returning the integer 35 to whoever called me. Here you go, 35. And it's going to come back here, and it's going to assign it to this area, the value of 35, because that's the value that comes from this expression, this integer expression, calculate area of 5, 7. Did that make sense? Can't count noses, but I can look at eyes. Okay, so here's another example. Here, I have an integer variable called side1. Its value is 5. I have an integer variable called side2. Its value is 7. I say calculate area side1, side2. That works perfectly because side1 is an integer expression that evaluates to 5. Side2 is an integer expression that evaluates to the value 7. So 5 and 7 are passed into calculate area. Length is now 5, width is now 7. Comes back with 35, and area will be equal to 35. I'm giving you all sorts of examples that will cover the worksheet. Here's one you could have used in the calculator assignment, but you really didn't need to. It's a method called convert to Celsius. Notice the Pascal case. It has as input a single integer, and it will be called Fahrenheit. Whatever integer you pass to it in this little program, it will be called Fahrenheit. And it's going to return an integer variable or integer value. So here it takes whatever came in for Fahrenheit, runs it through the Fahrenheit to Celsius calculation, and returns that value. So if I call it by saying convert to Celsius 32, Fahrenheit becomes 32. 32 minus 32 is 0. Doesn't matter what the rest of it is going to be 0. And so Celsius, the resulting value of convert to Celsius 32, the resulting value of that expression, integer expression, is 0. Here's a little bit more complicated one. This one is a method called rsame. It's taking as input 4 integer variables. I have creatively named them D1, D2, D3, and D4. Notice how each one is a separate, distinct declaration of a variable. Its output is going to be a single bool. So inside I say if D1 is equal to D2 and D2 is equal to D3 and D3 is equal to D4, this would have been useful for your dice game. We're going to return true. If that's true, we're going to return true. Otherwise, this is kind of the else, but if we don't return true, then we're going to return false. So it can have multiple return statements in there, so long as they're just down different code paths inside your group of statements that make up the processing part of your little mini program. which is this method. So if I want to call it, I can, because an if statement, inside the parentheses of an if statement, it needs to have a Boolean value or a Boolean expression. Well, our same is a Boolean value or a Boolean expression. It says 2323. That's going to come in here. D1 is 2, D2 is 3, D3 is 2, D4 is 3. It's going to say, are they all the same? No, false. So it's going to return false, and so it's going to say if this is false, okay, we're going to skip over and not add the bonus. See how that worked? All right, let's take a look at the worksheet together. Do you have the worksheet all done? Oh, how many of these do I have open? No wonder. All right. The first one, write a method that adds 25 points to score and decreases count by 1. Any questions on that one? Pretty straightforward. That one is extremely similar. If I go back to the presentation. It's extremely similar to this add bonus one. Only in this case, it's saying add 25 points to score and decrease count by 1. So you're going to have two different lines. You need to give your method a name. You need to give it a return type. In this case, it's not asking you to return anything, so you're going to say void, some name that is in Pascal case form. And it's not saying that it takes any input. So you're going to do two parens that are blank. There's nothing inside the parens. You'll do a curly brace, you'll do your lines of code, you'll do a curly brace. Your lines of code are going to be add 25 points to score, decrease count by 1. Any questions on that one? Excellent. Write a method that takes 3 integer parameters. So 3 integer parameters are your input. And it's going to return the sum of the 3 values. So what return type would that be? It would be an integer. So it took as input the 3 integers, adds the 3 together, and returns the sum of the 3 values. Remember, you're going to need to declare your method, give it a name that's appropriate, Pascal case. You'll take as the parameter list or the input list 3 distinctly defined integer variable names. You might say int A, comma, int B, comma, int C, or something like that. And the front end of the method declaration, before whatever the name was, you'll say int because it's returning an int. The body of it is going to be returning the sum of the 3 variables that you chose. Number 3, write a method that takes a method. It should have that there. Okay. Write a method takes an integer parameter. No one's ever corrected me on that. Okay. Takes an integer parameter. So it sounds like it takes one integer parameter. You got to give it a name. You need to give your method a name. And it's going to write good morning to text message.text if the hour is less than 12. So you're going to have an if statement inside your processing part of your method. Or it's going to write good evening. Otherwise is always a key word for else. Oh, that's the else part of an if statement. Does this make sense so far? Anybody need any help with this one? Boy, silence. Number 4, write a method that takes an integer as input and returns whether the input value is even or odd. What would be the return type on this guy? If it's even or odd. You might return a Boolean. Even or odd sounds like true or false. And you might choose to name this method. For my mind, it makes sense to call it isEven, capital I, capital E. It says it's taking as input an integer. So I need an integer and I need an input for an integer. I'm going to call it num. And it's going to return something. I'm going to say bool. You don't have to use the same variable names. You don't have to use the same method name. This will be, and this will be, there'll be an int in your parameter list, and there'll be a bool for your return type. What's the body of this going to look like? I gave you an example of how to tell if something's even earlier. How do you tell if something's even?
You can just do number modulus 2 is equivalent to 0 using the double equals Boolean value.
Num mod 2, boy, I'm having a hard time writing the number 2. If that is equal to 0, then I want to return true. Well, what if I just did return? That's a little odd for what you think about. But this is an integer value, and I'm just simply saying num mod 2 is going to give me an integer value. If that is equal to 0, well, this is a Boolean expression that's either going to be true or false because I'm using the comparison operator double equals. So I simply want to return that. Now, I could do the longhand version of this. I could say, hey, if num mod 2 is equal to 0, return true, else return false. I'm shorthanding this. All of this is equal to that, but because I'm a lazy programmer, I like the shorthand way. Does that make sense? That I'm a lazy programmer? Oh, no. Where's my good marker? Okay. Anybody have any questions about this one? You're all being very quiet. Question 5. Question 5 says basically, you created 4 methods up above. I want 4 lines here that are going to call all of those methods. So the first method, I'm going to call M1, takes no input, no output. Just has to have the right name matching what I use for method 1. Method 2 takes 3 integers as input. So method 2 needs 3 integers, and it returns an integer, something like that. Right? I'll let you figure out 3 and 4. All right, I'm going to stop here with the video and let you work on the worksheet.